Corey with the faces to start both episodes that we're recording tonight. Here we are, week 12 preview. Let's jump into it. I admittedly I'm only just starting to look at the slate. Like I mentioned before, been out of town. Finally getting back into a routine. Really starting tomorrow to get back into a routine. So just taking a quick glance at things. We'll see what this week holds. There's a lot of games that have pretty wide point spreads, so maybe not necessarily the at least heading into the weekend, not expected to be like a week that's chock full of down to the wire games. But we've been lied to before by Vegas, so maybe I'll kick us off unless you wanted to go through
No,
it.
go
Like
ahead.
the midweek slate, I don't know if there's anything that like really catches my eye. Like, of course, I'll probably tune in on some of them, but none of them are like really like, oh, we need to take a minute and discuss that. Um,
I feel like we haven't had as many uh, useful Thursdays or fun Thursdays as we used to have had in the past.
yeah, you're
Thursdays
not wrong.
been this year.
Yeah, like it used to get like we've got like an 8-3 Virginia Tech playing a 7-4 Wake Forest, and it's like, all right, like I'll tune into that.
Or
Um,
even sometimes it was like a good team versus like a pretty good team, like an okay team.
that's true, yeah. UCLA Washington, like I'll pay attention to that. That's Friday night this week, and Washington 5-5, UCLA 4-5, both probably need this one if they're gonna make a bowl game.
Definitely. Yeah.
Because Washington still has Oregon on the slate. I expect them to lose that game, so they have to kind of go perfect in the remaining two, which would be UCLA and I guess just UCLA and Oregon. Those are their final two games. They get a bye week in between them, so yeah, you have to have this one basically if you're Washington, and of course you also have to have it if you're UCLA. 3.5 point spread it looks like in that game. Uh, duh, 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 duh. Texas, Arkansas. Does this surprise you? That's like a 2 touchdown spread. Does that feel like low?
You asking me my picks already? Yeah.
No, sorry. I'm just like what? I'm trying to imagine like what's the world that Arkansas keeps this within 2 scores.
I think the concern potentially from Vegas is like Arkansas has played a few teams that kind of well. I'm looking at this. I want to say they played Tennessee.
Yeah, so they beat Tennessee.
Yeah, you, you beat Tennessee. You played Ole Miss tough-ish. I mean, you scored 31 on them. Yeah,
I mean, now they put a lot of lipstick on that pig. I thought it wasn't
yeah,
it like at 1.56 to 14. Like
it was a lot. They lost to A&M relatively close.
that's
I
true.
think the other thing that you're going through is this is in Arkansas's mind. This is a rivalry, an old time rivalry. Like,
Yeah, from the
and so they
Southwest
might be
Conference
angry
days.
about it.
Yeah.
The fans might be angry about it. The players weren't even born or thought
Yeah,
of.
they don't remember it at all. Yeah,
I mean, I don't remember when that was in it.
me neither.
So, like, I don't know. If we get the Texas that we had last week, and we get the I just blanked on the quarterback.
Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, if we get the Quinn Ewers that we had last week, this is going to be a blowout. Quinn Ewers looked phenomenal last week. 5 touchdowns, just picked apart Florida, and he had not looked that form since his injury. But he looked not hurt, goofing off, doing Three Stooges celebrations with his lineman. If you haven't seen that, go find that one. That was funny.
I haven't. I'll have to look it up.
But yeah, they looked like they annihilated it. And one I'll ruin for you earlier. Yeah, this is a pick I fully intended to have Texas cover that. So
Okay. I raised my eyebrow and really to the point where I'm like, okay, maybe someone knows something I don't. So I'm like yes, on paper, everything I would say would expect them to go and win that game by more than that 13.5 point spread. I think the one thing that maybe is like concerning or just at least of note, they this is how is this possible? I'm looking at Texas's schedule. They've really only been on the road twice this year. I guess if Oklahoma, maybe they were that's a neutral site game, so I don't know if they were the away team on that. But they've only played outside of that game. They've only played two other games on the road, right? And that's of course a neutral site, but like at Michigan and at Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt, obviously, they won the game, but it was closer than people expected. So maybe that's part of it. It's just like, hey, can they actually operate on the road? Because Nashville, is or like I can't even remember the name of Vanderbilt Stadium, but not exactly the most intimidating environment to go into. Although, it was a nice little troll where they put Nick Saban saying the only easy place to play in the SEC is Vanderbilt after they beat Alabama. I just I wonder if that's something that is maybe factored in there. But it's a 10 or it's an 11 a.m. local time kick. I don't know. That one just raised my eyebrows. Like, oh, you're putting that at 14. It feels like bait almost. Like Vegas is asking you, like, here, or we're gonna put something that you think is way too low and try and get you to take Texas when it should
You
be
know what?
Arkansas.
I will take the cheese and sneak out of that mousetrap. So
There you go. Love it. Love it. This is going to be fun to look back on in a week if Arkansas somehow pulls the upset. But yeah, that one just raised my hand or raised my eyebrow. A couple other games that I wanted to just take a little bit of time. Like, okay, with Utah having somewhat of a resurgent effort last week, do you think that was just them getting ready for a rivalry game and trying to salvage their season by beating BYU and playing spoiler? Or do you think, like, hey, the new quarterback gave them a bit of a spark. You got some juice on both sides, and Colorado needs to be concerned going into this one in Boulder.
if you were going to surprise Colorado, you needed to do it against Colorado. There's no surprise coming here. Let's be real. Colorado has better athletes than BYU does. I don't feel like Utah makes this. Relatively close. I don't know what the line for BYU Utah was last week, but I imagine this Colorado Utah game is higher than it was last week.
Yeah. So, well, I think there's a couple things. Like Utah was at home, Colorado's at home for this game against Utah. So, like, there's that.
Even if you were to take that negative, that 6 point spread, I think it was.
Yeah, so I think it closed like BYU -3, right? This right now I'm showing is -10 for Colorado versus
That'd be
Utah.
6 then.
So it's close. Like it's not, maybe not quite there, but I'm just fascinated to see Utah's defensive backs played okay against BYU. Like I didn't think they were stellar, and I would take Colorado's receivers over BYU's receivers. I would take Colorado's QB over BYU's QB. But
like when Retzlaff could finally hit the target, they picked apart Utah. Like that 195-yard drive, it's like all of a sudden he started getting rhythm and he hit the target.
mm-hmm.
Shedur's
if you get Shedeur in that, like, yeah, it's going to be a real trouble. But the interesting thing I think is that on the defensive ends for Utah, like they did against BYU, I think they've got an advantage there against the tackles of Colorado. So that could be one that helps neutralize some of the advantages that we're identifying for Colorado. So Van Fillinger and Logan Fano need to have a strong effort for Utah. That one I was kind of hoping would be like the 10 p.m. game. Like that feels like the right time slot
it does feel
one.
like a good game to have late. And Colorado hasn't played those late games like they did last year. But I mean, at the same time, like, what is there for Utah to play for now? You're four.
I mean, you can still make a bowl.
But you have to play Iowa State next week.
Who looks more gettable by the week.
I agree, but you played the top 3 teams in the Big 12 in the last 3 weeks.
Like, yeah, that part's not easy or fun.
And then you go play crazy UCF, which has started 4 quarterbacks this year, and who knows who's going to start. You might start for UCF next week, quarterback.
I mean, who are they playing next week? What?
I said, and might beat Utah. That's what I see.
Yeah. I just I think that if they are going to make something, and again, I strongly suspect this is Kyle Whittingham's last year. I think that's why he took the BYU loss so hard. Like he knew that was his last chance.
It was a rivalry. The whole thing was weird to me. it must have been like other calls that frustrated them. Like to blow up over that one call.
I mean, it's a pretty big call. Like, not necessarily like it's like I didn't necessarily feel like it was the wrong call, but it's like it's such like it's at such a crucial moment in the game. Like, literally, if that call's not made, the game is over. Utah wins. Like, um,
100%.
so I think I don't blame him. Like, I feel like just the result there ends up being so. But again, them having the meltdown, I feel like it puts the defense in this weird position where it's like, yeah, if you've ever seen it where a coach just totally loses his cool on like a call, and it almost projects like he knows like without that, whatever the actual result of the play would have been. Like, I think back to, I think it's 2014, no, 2015 or 2016, FSU versus Clemson. It would have been 2016. It's Dalvin Cook goes off in this game, and there's a pretty bad block in the back call on like a 60-yard run from Dalvin Cook, and Jimbo Fisher loses his mind. So the play's called back, 10-yard penalty or whatever for blocking the back, and then he gets an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty to kind of compound the mistake. But I felt like the whole team kind of basically said like we needed that one without that 60-yard run, which they I think were up by 7 at the time, and there was a chance to go up 2 scores, I think, in the fourth quarter. And it felt like Jimbo was sort of relaying the message, not verbally saying it to the team, basically like, we needed that one, otherwise we lose. Like, and it feels like the team sort of adopts that mentality too. So I don't know, but the psychology of the game is kind of interesting. Where I feel like if you're the coach or especially the athletic director, but the coach certainly, like, you can't lose your cool on that. I mean, you can go ballistic after the game, but like the way that Kyle was kind of freaking out, and I don't blame him for being upset, but I just feel like sometimes it says like, I don't have the faith that my team can overcome this adversity that we've now are just experiencing, right? Like it almost projects that sort of a message onto the team.
Well, and that's essentially what it did. I mean, you look at everybody else; it's like that they were on the 19-yard line. They still had
Yeah,
81 yards to go. Like that didn't lose you the game, but if that mentality lost you the game, it loses you the game. So
yeah. Anyway, wild tangent there. So I'm excited to see that one. I think the noon slate has a couple of games that are that'll probably be more intriguing than many. Again, that Texas Arkansas game, Utah Colorado, and then Clemson Pittsburgh. Like, oh, okay. Like,
yeah,
we'll see if
Pitts
Pitts.
dropped
Yeah,
to
they're in free fall. So can they right the ship? I don't know if they can, but um, it's again, the spread on that one's 10. So all right, Pittsburgh, make a couple plays early and see if Clemson starts to get nervous.
and to me,
Um,
it's just funny that Clemson's ranked 23 and Pitt's ranked 18. I mean, Clemson's losses are to a good Louisville team that played pretty
and
well, and Georgia, and Pitt's losses are to the rankings right now make no sense to me. They are just they lost to SMU and Virginia.
yeah, I feel like at some point you have to just say, okay, like, but let's clean slate. Let's actually just like look at these, and the recency bias is the part that drives me crazy, and I think that's kind of what you're driving at here, where it's like Pittsburgh was ranked higher because they were undefeated, and now that they have 2 losses, we haven't like been like, okay, where do they actually stack amongst the teams that have 2 losses or have similar resumes? And I think the opposite is true on the same like where like BYU beating SMU early didn't get them a whole lot of credit.
Yep,
Whereas if they were to beat that team today, they,
but
that would
they
be
didn't
a real
beat
needle
an
mover.
A&M team that didn't have itself figured out either. So like it's a bunch of hogwash.
I mean, like, yeah, but did they really move up that much for beating that A&M team? I feel like they were kind of there, and then they just kept winning when everyone
No,
else lost.
but
So
I'm saying Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. Be real, and
yeah, yeah,
and has
people
no
have
words
forgotten
coming
about
out
that.
of
Like,
yeah.
yeah,
And then like if you go on LSU, it's LSU's they beat Ole Miss in overtime. Other than that, they haven't beat anybody. Like you lost
South
to
Carolina, didn't they?
huh?
I, I give them credit for the South Carolina win. Like it's not maybe like the best win in the world, but it's what they're ranked, right?
South Carolina's 3-3 in the SEC. 3-4, 4-3, I think, in the SEC. Like
Something like that.
yeah, I'm not gonna give you a credit to be a top 15 team when you beat South Carolina. I don't know.
All right.
Another game I'm interested in.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Bama Mercer. How high does that score go? I think it's a good tune-up game for Bama, just kind of get themselves ready to finish the season, because what you have,
yeah, little palate cleanser before the Iron Bowl,
and you have Oklahoma as well. But like this Bama team is going to be scary, I think, coming into this playoffs. Whether they make it to the SEC championship, we'll see. But in the playoffs, it'll be scary. And
yeah, I feel pretty confident that they're in the playoff at this point. Like, whereas a few weeks ago, it was like, I don't know.
Unless you drop one of these ones that you shouldn't, because these next 3 games you shouldn't. Mercer, although they're 9-1, like let's give Mercer their due.
Yeah, put some respect on the Bears.
But I mean, looking at their team, just what their victories are, they're doing well for their being in the Southern. But yeah, I don't know. This Bama team scares me, especially with this much time to kind of prep and continue to refine and get everybody healthy, and you're in position to be successful.
Yeah, I agree. LSU, Florida. We talked about this a little bit on the last recording. Like, if DJ's able to play, they can make it interesting.
LSU's 4.5. This is definitely a gettable game.
Yeah.
This Florida team,
and it's just like, where's Florida at? Or not Florida, where's LSU at now that I think most of their goals are off the table? Like,
did you watch the UF?
Wow, I didn't realize Nussmeier has thrown 21 touchdowns and 11 picks.
How many of those have been in the last 4 games? I bet you 7.
Something like that. It's been, he's had a rough go of it lately.
Yeah.
He threw. Oh, okay, maybe not. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong. Yeah. So he threw 2 against Bama, 3 against A&M, so 5 in the last 2 games. None versus Arkansas, but then another 2 in the win against Ole Miss.
That's not bad. Did I say the last 4 games? 7? I think that's what I said.
I thought you said in the last 3 games, but nonetheless.
Either way.
Yeah.
The one thing I like about this Florida team is they play. They fight. I mean, you were not expected to win against Georgia. You held your own against Georgia. You got spanked by Texas. Let's be real. You got spanked by Texas. But if you watch the end of that Texas game, that Florida team was celebrating wins when they were blowing players off the ball, celebrating times when they got into the end zone. They are not laying down and rolling over. They're getting beat by superior teams, but they are willing to play to the end. And props to them saying, hey, we're going to keep Billy Napier. And I think this is –
the team's rallying around that.
Yeah, and I do think that there might be some organizational issues from just what I've heard, and not from actually myself, but like from the rumors I've read about, there might be some organizational issues within this area, within the UF football department. But there's no denying that they're starting to gather talent, that they are acquiring talent at a higher level than Florida State, that they're moving up the levels to be online or on par with Miami. And if they can figure the pieces out where they were, had 11 men or 13 men on the field, or two number 6s, if they can figure that stuff out, this team could start becoming formidable. And so,
man,
at 4.5, I could see they can get LSU.
Billy Napier, I am humbly submitting my application right now to do that for you. Like, hey, I can count the players on the sideline to make sure you don't have 12 on the field. And I'll just institute a rule where, hey, we don't share numbers here. We don't have 2 number 6s on the roster. So we don't have to worry about that. Problem solved. Like,
that's one of the things I'm always surprised about. Like, why do people have that?
You introduce this logistics nightmare. I'm sure it's for recruiting purposes because everyone wants, the single numbers. To me, I would put that on someone like, look, since everyone has the single numbers, they actually lose their significance. If you're number 37 and you ball out and you wear it for 4 years, everyone's going to remember you as 37. It's like Jackie Robinson with 42.
Yep.
Like, everyone knows who. I mean, obviously, his goes well beyond just playing great and
but like if you go
breaking barriers.
Who's the other number 42 you think of? Mariano Rivera, right?
Yeah, or like Peyton Manning. What's his number? 18. Everyone knows it. Like because it's kind of a unique number, right? Like, so that's that was kind of more the point I was driving at. Is like if you are one of those where it's like, hey, why don't you stand out and be something different? Like, there's an opportunity to do that. Uh,
Uh,
I digress. A couple other games I wanted to just touch on. In the Who Wants to Go to a Bowl Game Bowl, Nebraska and USC are fighting for their bowl lives. Jaden Mayava gets his first crack at starting for USC. I like the Trojans in this one, but just figured I'd at least highlight it. Nebraska, are they? Gosh, is Nebraska gonna not make a bowl again? It's gonna be close.
I'm pulling up their schedule real quick.
So I got it. They're at USC, then they're home versus Wisconsin. I think that's the one that they probably get, and then they're on the road to Iowa at night on November 29th. That
Yeah,
will be probably a miserably cold game for both teams and all the fans. But
the fact that you lost to UCLA is the biggest issue. I mean, you dropped games that you probably
yes,
should lose in Indiana, Ohio State, Illinois. Mm, you got to get this SEC and this Wisconsin win. Like I mean, I was gettable too, but
yeah, I think that there's definitely a world you can get two of these three right at USC. You're like a 9.5, 10 point dog. So I don't necessarily expect them to win this game. I think just some of the athletes that Southern Cal has maybe presents a problem. But Wisconsin, you can win that game. I don't think Wisconsin's particularly good. At Iowa, I feel a whole lot better if it was in Lincoln. But again, Iowa's gettable. But it's just like it's hard to ask a team that hasn't won in almost a month now to win two of three. So
well, but you're also saying the same thing about USC, right? USC's got a win against Rutgers, and then they haven't won since what Wisconsin earlier this year. They started this year 3-1, and they are now 4-5.
yikes.
What happens if you don't win this game? What happens if you lose to UCLA and then you get smoked by Notre Dame? You're four and I can't do the math, but 4-8 this year.
Yeah, you'd be 4-8 if you lose all three.
Even 5-7, is that acceptable under Lincoln Riley? Like, what do you do about that? Do you
I would
change it?
say 6-6 in year three is not acceptable. Like, I
Well, I would say
understand
also
you're moving
9 in
conference.
year 4 is not, and they're still keeping him around.
Who?
Norvell.
Oh,
I'm just
well,
teasing.
that's true, but he at least has like a conference champion. You know, he's had success
Yeah.
at levels that USC has not. Right? I guess that they did make that one Pac-12 championship game, and Caleb Williams got injured, so Utah ended up winning it. But all the same, that one's just a fascinating one for like. More just for like the vibes around those programs heading into 25, I think is really really interesting. Also, Holgerson is going to be the offensive coordinator for Nebraska after just barely moving there.
Oh, I didn't know
So,
that.
oh yeah, that's new as of this week. So we'll see what comes of that. That part's kind of another fascinating little wrinkle in that particular game. Couple others, I guess. Like maybe we go with like the premier matchup of the week: Georgia Tennessee. I don't know what to make of this game. I really don't. I feel
Yeah, what
like
Beck are you going to get to show up, and what Nico are you going to get to show up? And
exactly.
will the teams be able to run the ball? Because Tennessee leans on the run. Georgia's defense tends to be pretty stout, and Georgia struggled to run the ball, and Tennessee's defensive line is pretty stout. Like, it's going to be this could be potentially a really low scoring game.
Yes.
I wonder what
Now you're asking for my picks.
that's funny.
The total, according to ESPN Bet, is 48.5.
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
I don't know what it looks like on DraftKings or
Yeah,
both
48 and a
sites.
half as well.
Okay. But yes, hear you loud and clear on
That's funny.
that. Are there any other games that you really want to preview? Oh, yeah. Also, yeah, the Oregon Wisconsin spread seems a little low. I know it's our traveling time zones. It'll Camp Randall Stadium, jump around, 14.5. I just don't trust Wisconsin.
Yeah, let's see. Wisconsin's dropped it. Wisconsin's offense has scored 23 points in the last 2 weeks. Last 2 games.
Yikes! And now you face Oregon's defense.
Yeah, like, yeah, I don't see that happening. So, yeah, I'm on the same page. The other game I wanted to talk about was Missouri and I had to flip off it for a second. Let me see if I can. South Carolina. Missouri's ranked. Missouri has 2 losses. They're ranked 24. Like, but we all know that team is a fraud.
Yeah, they're
South Carolina is 11.5 point favorites according to ESPN Bet.
as they should be. I think like
Like,
it's not one of my picks, but I think that they probably cover that. Missouri is they're well. First of all, they're the walking wounded. They've had a ton of injuries, so that's part of it. But even when they were there at full strength, they were barely beating Boston College at home. Like,
yeah,
um, this team is a beneficiary of the bloated conferences, and they've been able to kind of, they've been able to pick up wins against mostly the bottom tier of the league.
don't
I
talk about
think.
Vandy that way.
Well, I was gonna say like Vandy's their quality win as far as I'm concerned. Like
Yeah,
I don't know if they have anything else to hang their hat on, but they've also been the beneficiaries of really a pretty light schedule, all things considered, in the SEC.
yeah. Last but not least, BYU and Kansas at the end of the night. Kansas starting to round into form.
This is red alert.
You go into Provo, 8:15. The Mormons don't lose at night, but they flirted with disaster against Oklahoma State. So, I don't know. It's an interesting game. It's one if BYU can jump on them early, that crowd can make it rough. I think if
Yeah,
BYU gets ruckus at night, that that is a crazy game. Like, but that crowd doesn't get ruckus unless they're blowing teams out. Rather,
yeah, they kind of need a reason to. It's
yeah,
it's a part that's a little frustrating as a fan. Like it's just not an intimidating environment from the word go. It becomes intimidating once they have a big player too, particularly defensively. But yes, it starts off very mild mannered. So I think how you start for both teams is going to be really critical in that game. But it's been a good one. I would hope that the fans show out for that game, at least show appreciation for, again, hey, you got the win last week at Utah. Everyone should be thrilled. You've got two more of these games at home in what has been a really special season. Regardless of what happens I mean, they could lose all three of their remaining games and lose the bowl game. I would still consider the season to be a raging success. And
well, considering your win loss total was 4 and a
yeah,
half.
4.5. Yeah, so doubling your win expectations from Vegas is not easy, and particularly if you're like set at one, like doubling it to two is like not that big a deal. Or I mean, I wouldn't say not that big a deal, but just not the same accomplishment as going from 4.5 expected wins to 9 is excellent. So all I'm saying is like I would think that the fans would want to really savor these next couple of home games because the team has been so performed so well above I think anyone's expectations. So I am hopeful for that one. But yeah, like you said, Kansas is rounding into form. They're scoring a bunch of points. I don't think they have much of a defense, so things could get just wild and crazy in terms of a back and forth affair. I think I do trust BYU to win this game though. I feel pretty like I'm nervous about it. Like it's one that like, hey, you can't peek ahead to anything else. Like Kansas needs to have your full attention. But if you get off to an okay start here, I think there is a world where Kansas packs it in if you're able to kind of get up a couple of scores. Kansas fighting for their bowl lives. They are 3-6. They need to go perfect against BYU, Colorado, and Baylor. Two of those three are on the road, so it's a tough row to hoe for them. Um, what was the other one that I wanted to touch on for a minute here? Maybe that was it.
Boise State against your San Jose State Spartans.
Oh, I mean, I love San Jose State for a few different reasons. Like, uh, one, like I've always loved that logo. I think there was a kid that was in middle school that had a San Jose State Spartans hat. I thought that the helmet that they have on as their logo is awesome. Um, I also used to play with them in like the NCAA football video games. Rebuilt that program. Got like a 3-star recruit that ended up being like a 1,200 yard receiver for me. Just led the team. I can't remember his first name. His last name was McDowell, and he was the best. Um, and yeah, Ken Umatalolo being the head coach there, gotta love him. Good friends with his nephew. I don't know if you knew that, Corey.
Did.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, so we're always keeping it within the family,
Well,
if you will, on
and I
that.
mean, they're 6-3. Like
Yeah, they're having a great year.
they could have beaten Washington State, lost by 2. Play Colorado State close. I mean, they're not a great team, but they're winning games.
I
So
mean, they could have been beat Washington State. Was probably should have beat Washington State. Like
not really.
that was a wild affair. Which again, if if you're interested in back and forth games, like you can go back and rewatch that one. That's a fun ride. It's all over the place. But the other one I was going to talk about was Arizona State, Kansas State. Because Arizona State's 7-2 and still not ranked, and we're out here ranking 3 loss teams. I don't
Missouri.
know. Yeah, exactly. I'd be curious. I'd be curious to see what the line would be between Missouri and Arizona State, like what the point spread would be. I I think okay, maybe not. It depends on the health of both teams too. But all that to say, like that's an important game. If Colorado slips up at some point, they're both technically still in play there.
I think
So
Kansas State's probably favored because they own the head-to-head with Colorado, right?
right, but I'm saying if Arizona State beats Kansas State, that gives gives Kansas State 3 losses in conference, so they would not be at that next tier. But Arizona State would be in there with Iowa State and Colorado.
Yeah.
And Arizona State has
They have Kansas State, BYU, and Arizona left.
okay. They did not play Iowa State.
No.
Okay, and they did not play Colorado. Neither one of them. All right, so that one then it starts to turn into a tiebreaker thing. But yeah, Arizona State's having a great season. Kansas State trying to just be in position that if Colorado stumbles, that they're still there to potentially get a shot in the Big 12 title game. That's one that I'll be watching. 2 good running attacks. I expect the game to probably go by pretty quickly. And yeah, even though those offenses are they score, but they run the ball first. Yeah, they see the total at 51, so kind of expect a lower scoring affair. Not necessarily because the offenses won't be. I expect the offenses probably to get the better of the defenses in terms
Well,
of
and
just
yeah,
like
and how
really
is
good play.
Arizona State going to handle Scadaboo being injured still?
Is he still out?
Questionable.
Questionable. Okay. Well, I guess that changes things. Sorry, I thought he was. Yeah, I thought he was back. I know he was gone this past week, but
Yeah.
so all right. Well, yeah. What do they do there? And Sam Levitt's a decent player. He might be able to kind of just continue to lead them to stuff, but
Yeah.
um, lead them to scoring. Katie Dillingham's a pretty good offensive mind. We'll be interesting to see what he does to try and navigate that having one hand tied behind your back without Cam Scattaboo.
All right. Should we move on to the week picks?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let me get it pulled up real quick here. Give me just a
I had
second.
my worst week going ever. At least my worst week this season by far. We could go 3-8 in this season. We had a lot of picks. Like I always say, if I'm on Steven's side, I'm probably not going the right direction. But you were better
Yeah,
than me this week.
I was. Sorry. Let me get this opened up a little bit more so you can see it. Oh, I guess it maybe shows up a little bit differently on the recording than what I've got the window open on my second monitor here. Yeah. So for this most recent week, I went 6-5 and really felt pretty good about a couple of others, like the Oregon Maryland game. Really thought they would get that over the hump. They did not. The Bama LSU over 58.5. I feel like if this game isn't played in like a downpour, we probably get there. And then the BYU Utah under 41.5 was broken by the last field goal. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Because they were at 40 points.
Yeah, 21-19. Yeah,
It was 21-19. So uh, uh, pretty bad missed face mask call. It gives Utah a touchdown early in the game, or at least significantly advanced them down the field. The hold on Utah at the end allows BYU to go and kick the game-winning field goal to push that one over. So I thought we were in a pretty good spot with a few more of these. And again, the Miami Georgia Tech one is a stunning result to say the least. So not my best week, but again, still one above 500 for the week, 41-34 on the year. We're both having pretty good years. So
yeah. My lead, which was substantial, has shrunk insanely amount.
Yeah, you had a rough week, but it's time to get back on the saddle. It just means that you'll bounce back this week. Let's go through my picks. I already mentioned one. I'll probably type these in later, but yeah, the Georgia Tennessee. I want the under. Sorry, let me. I'll type that in. Tennessee under, and it's under what? Sorry, I forget the number.
48, I think was the line that we saw.
41.5.
Maybe I'm crazy.
Okay. All right. So I'll take that one to start. I've got a few others that I like as well.
No, Steve, it's 48.5.
48. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that seemed low.
Yeah.
But I was like, whatever it was, I felt good about it, and I'm gonna stick to what I have. All right, here we go. Friday night, Houston goes on the road at Arizona as a 1.5-point underdog. I think Houston wins the game. I think Arizona is just ready to be done with the season, which is unfortunate because kind of a soft spot in my heart for elements of that Arizona team. It just hasn't worked out in this first year of Brent Brenneman at Arizona. So we'll see if Willie Fritz can go and get the win on the road. That's quite a bit of travel, but again, I just feel like from a vibes perspective, these are two very different teams right now.
One's coming up and one's going down. I agree.
Yeah, we talked about. I like Utah to cover the 10.5 versus Colorado. I feel like their defense is playing pretty well. This is one where I feel like this is either a nail biter or it snowballs on Utah. They keep fighting, and I think that they'll keep it close. The question is, can they get enough offensively to really kind of keep the ball rolling? So I like Utah to cover the 10.5 that they're receiving on the road at Colorado. I feel like they found some things this last game where it's like, okay, we're not perfect, but that was Brandon Rose's first start. We'll see if he can make another little jump with another week and some film to look back on. I like the under in Texas and Arkansas, under 57.5. Again, I thought long and hard about Texas covering that spread. I'm a little nervous. Just it feels too low, and it feels kind of like a trap. What was the number here? 57.5. Okay. What others do I like? Yeah. So we got the Tennessee Georgia one already. Oh, and I like Washington to cover the 3.5 versus UCLA.
That's surprising.
Yeah, I mean UCLA's been playing a little bit better. This one's on the road. This is one that Jedd Fisch has to have if he's going bowling, and I feel like he's going to have the right game plan for it. So those are my picks. It's kind of a lighter week for me. 5 total. Let me just double check and make sure I didn't miss anything else. Yep. I'm tapped out there. I don't know if you have. Yeah, if you're ready to.
Oh, I'm ready.
All right, fire away.
All right. Texas, Arkansas, we've kind of talked about that already. Give me Texas to cover 13.5 against Arkansas. I think this Quinn Ewers talent that he kind of tapped into last week carries over, that this team blows out Arkansas. Arkansas wants to make this a close game, and I think Texas is out to show them that they are a superior team. Steve Sarkisian does not want to put this team in a position that they are not having a chance to win the SEC championship, and they will do everything within their power not to do that. And he's game planned excellent this year. So give me Texas to cover. Ohio State at Northwestern, minus 29. Give me them to cover that. I don't think Ohio State has quite the killer instinct that they've had in previous seasons, but I think they can get this into a 42-7 kind of opportunity, and that would cover it. To be honest, I'm following my bread and butter. In the past, I've been picking games where the favorites cover. That didn't work out last week as well, but we're going to continue on the line because it's worked out for me throughout the rest of the season. So give me Boise State to beat San Jose State minus 13.5. Everybody knows Ashton Jeanty's going to be running the ball, but Boise State's also got a good quarterback there, and I think they win that one pretty handily. You mentioned the Oregon Wisconsin line. I also noticed that. Give me Oregon to cover the 14.5 at Wisconsin. Even if they don't play well, they should, in my opinion, still cover that. Clemson has reason to play Pitt, and Pitt's kind of dropped too. They have a reason to play hard, and knowing that if Miami slips up, they can potentially get into the ACC championship game and then give themselves a chance at the playoff. Minus 10 at Pitt. Let's see what else we got. Notre Dame is romping teams, and they play Virginia. Virginia's at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's favored by 22.5 points. Continue giving me Notre Dame to cover that one as well. Tennessee UGA. The Dogs versus the other Dogs, Volunteers. Give me Tennessee to cover this. I think this is a closer game than the 10 points. That seems like a very large spread to me compared to what this is. I know this game is in Athens, but still, I think Tennessee has a chance to really put themselves in a prime position to fight for the SEC title. And if they can, they've already beat Alabama this year. If they can put a stamp on beating Georgia this year, like you've beaten the two quality teams that have been in the SEC.
Yeah, the two sort of
yeah, you made it over the hump a little bit.
Yeah.
Nice second, but you'll see that one. I'm on the opposite side of the Colorado-Utah game. I do not think the quarterback, I can't remember his name, Powers. So.
It's Brandon Rose.
Brandon Rose. I don't know why I said Powers. Brandon Rose. I don't think he has what it takes to kind of move them into that next spot. I think this is going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be like 35-17. I know that Utah's offense or defense is good, but I don't think that they can contain Colorado's
for 60 minutes. Yeah, that's the fear is that they end up breaking and they break really hard at the end.
And it's
for me.
Colorado. Like Rose has got to go on the road. Good luck. Just FYI, you have Colorado versus Colorado on that one. So.
Oh, whoops, sorry. I think I heard you say it and I typed it. Sometimes
I've got Texas, Boise State, Oregon. And then last but not least, I think this is a letdown game for BYU. Give me Kansas +3. I'm scared of a running quarterback. I'm scared of Jalen Daniels, and he's moving into to form. His completion percentage isn't as high as we'd like it to be. I mean, if you're a Kansas fan, but when you complete 12 passes for 280 yards, that's a recipe for success. They played well the last two games. They probably should have beat Kansas State 2 weeks ago. They beat Iowa State last week.
Yeah, they beat Iowa State. And, beat them pretty badly.
Yeah, and I think that they could put another stamp on their record. Let's see. I think that's all I'm going to take this week. So,
I guess I was a little sheepish compared to your 9. I only did 5, so.
if you know they're right, that's the ones you pick.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun week again. Excited to see how it all plays out. Who knows with some of the spreads being double digits and sometimes into like three score territory. Um, how many of these are close? But I'm sure there will be one or two surprises. In fact, you're calling for one. I'm not necessarily calling for one, but yeah, we'll see it. We'll regroup next week. Thanks everyone for listening in. This has been the CFB Paint Podcast.